It's Friday, February the 20th, 2026, and this is the Daily Article Podcast from Denison Forum. Welcome. We're glad you've joined us. Dr. Ryan Denison, our senior editor for theology, wrote today's daily article. I'm Chris Elkins, narrator. Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, formerly known as Prince Andrew of the English royal family, was arrested yesterday on his 66th birthday after the latest batch of Epstein files that were made public last month shed new light on his connection with Jeffrey Epstein and his associates. But while that connection has been known for years, the charges that landed Andrew in jail, at least for the time being, were not about the allegations of rape and assault that have trailed him for more than a decade. Rather, he was arrested for suspicion of misconduct in public office. Essentially, Andrew stands accused of sharing confidential information with Epstein while the former prince served as an official trade envoy for England. The charges are a bit nebulous, as technically there's no official statute that defines what they mean. Rather, they have evolved over time from British common law. Even if the accusations are a bit underwhelming when compared with Andrew's other alleged crimes, for which he has never been convicted even if they are common knowledge, yesterday's arrest still marks the first time that a member of the British royal family has been taken into custody since King Charles I was tried and executed for treason back during the English Civil War in 1649. And Andrew's arrest was apparently done without the family's knowledge. After the arrest became public, King Charles III released a statement supporting the arrest and promising that police will, quote, have our full and wholehearted support and cooperation. Let me state this clearly, the law must take its course, end quote. And it's quite possible that Andrew's arrest could change other lives as well as the law does just that. Last November, Andrew was urged to come speak before Congress regarding his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and their business of trafficking young women and girls. Back then, he declined to appear. However, it's possible that the FBI could question him while he is in police custody in Britain. Now that he is potentially facing life in prison, he has less to lose than when he was a free man. Would he trade secrets for a reduced or annulled sentence? When he was stripped of his titles late last year, there was a good bit of speculation that part of the reason the king made sure he landed on his feet was to keep him from having to sell information to maintain his lifestyle. While the British royal family can likely take steps to ensure that their secrets are kept safe, Andrew was close enough with Epstein that his testimony could prove pivotal in bringing others to some measure of justice. And given that he has essentially been cut out of the royal family in recent years, the separation became more absolute in the wake of Queen Elizabeth's passing, he is likely to need all the help he can get. So, whether it's before a London court or the halls of Congress, Andrew's affiliation with Epstein and Maxwell is likely to continue making headlines for quite a while. But why is that? Why does anything involving Epstein make headlines today? On the surface, it sounds like a silly question, but if you stop to consider it, I think it points to an interesting conclusion and one far too many take for granted in our culture today. Last week, cultural philosopher Paul Anleitner noted in response to the latest outrage over Epstein, quote, here is an uncomfortable truth about the Epstein accusations. We only find them morally reprehensible because of Christianity. Before the spread of Christianity, civilized Greek and Roman elites openly flaunted underage sex slaves. This was normal. Emperor Hadrian built an entire city in honor of his favorite boy. We've heard for decades that Christianity is a barrier to moral progress, but if you undercut the moral foundations of Christianity from the West, culture reverts back to pagan norms. End quote. While the culture and moral development of the West is not quite that straightforward, Anleitner is correct. The driving force behind the changes from the Greco-Roman ethics of the ancient world to the Judeo-Christian morality that stands as the foundation of so much today was Christianity. As the Greek historian Thucydides noted 400 years before Christ, quote, you know as well as we do that right, as the world goes, is only in question between equals in power, while the strong do what they can and the weak suffer what they must. End quote. While the sad reality is that we see that basic dichotomy at times in Christian history as well, many of the fundamental shifts in how people value individual human lives in our culture today owe a great deal to the gospel's power to transform hearts and renew minds established in Romans 12, verse 2. The question facing our society now is whether we can maintain the moral system built upon Christian ethics while rejecting the God who created it. Jesus was pretty clear on the answer, and it's not looking good. At the end of the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 7, verses 24 through 27, Jesus wraps up his teaching by telling his followers, "Everyone who hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, but it did not fall, because it had been founded on the rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rains fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it." In this passage, Jesus makes clear that it's not enough to simply hear Christ's commands or to have a vague understanding of what they mean. It's only when we put those commands into action that we find the kind of foundation necessary to weather the storms that will inevitably come our way. Most people in America today have at least a passing awareness of who Jesus is and are even familiar with some of his teachings. But familiarity is not enough. Christ demands obedience, and nothing less will suffice. We are blessed to live in a time when at least some elements of Christ's commands for how we should live and how we should treat one another are already accepted as the morally right thing to do. That puts us head and shoulders above those first Christians who lived in a world built on a view much closer to Thucydides than to Jesus. At the same time, though, the lost around us are unlikely to take that step from awareness to obedience unless they see us do it first. So, as we finish up for today, ask the Holy Spirit if there are areas of your life where you've settled for less than full obedience. Are there cracks in your foundation or rooms built on sand? Most of us have some area we have tried to keep back as our own. But God's promise is that they won't hold up for long. And I fear the same will be true for our nation as well, unless something changes. And that's where you and I come in. God will give us the privilege of partnering with Him in helping to bring our culture back to Jesus, one life at a time. Where can you start today? Thank you for listening to today's Daily Article podcast. If you would also like to read the daily article with its citations and references linked to their sources, find links in the episode notes to read today's article and to subscribe to the Daily Article email newsletter.